Hello and welcome to the Weekly Scroll podcast brought to you by the Adventure Archive. My name is Ryan.
And I'm Hunter, just Hunter.
And with us today, I'm sorry. So that throws me off more than anything you say is when you actually say your real name.
It's still a reference to Himbo. So,
Well, there we go. But anyway, with us, we have Max Lander. How you doing today, Max?
Great. Yeah, good. Excited to be here.
Wonderful. It's great to have you. So who the heck is Max Lander? Like, what might people know you for? Yeah, define yourself entirely in about 2 sentences, if you could, for us. Please.
Yeah. I mean, contextual to this, I am the designer of Himbos of Myth and Metal, but I also teach game design, and I used to and still occasionally am a photographer, and I have a history in dirty videos, and I make all kinds of other interactive art and do like VR and AR development in the daytime. So all the things, many of them.
So many things.
A little bit of everything. Yeah. So gosh, where do we even begin? I guess we're a game review podcast. Yeah. I guess throughout this obviously very jam-packed life you've had in all these different fields, at what point did you get into game design?
Game design is new. Like, I've been a person who plays games for a long time, I think, as everybody does, but game design came to me, I want to say 5 or 6 years ago via VR and video games. So RPG design started in the pandemic, but I had already been thinking about game design because photography was boring me a little bit. And so I decided to go and get a degree, which is, I should say these things faster. This is a long meandering path through things.
We don't care. Go for it.
Honestly, let's do it. Yeah.
I don't have an undergrad degree, and I thought it would be fun to see if I could convince a university to let me go to a graduate program without having to do an undergraduate program, and they did. And so I did a grad degree in effectively games, even though my experience was in photography. And so I spent a couple years exploring games primarily through VR and physical mediums. And then the pandemic happened, and I was like, wait, people just make RPGs, and I love RPGs. I could probably make an RPG I love. Maybe. The I love part is the hard part of the RPG design. But yeah, then the pandemic happened, and I was I read the book S by J.J. Abrams and some other guy, Doug Dorst or whatever, and it's a novel that has a bunch of inserts in it, and a second story takes place in the margins of two characters writing to one another. And I was like, cool. That sounds like a fun pandemic game. So my first RPG was a game that you played in a book that you mailed or hand off to another person, and then they take their turn writing you messages in another book, and it all went wild from there.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's really awesome. I very much love a lot of those non-traditional, especially male focused games that were cropped up during lockdown and the pandemic. I think that they're really cool and a fun different kind of game creative activity. But yeah, very cool. So I have a question. What the hell is Himbos? Tell us about Himbos of Myth and Metal.
Himbos of Myth and Metal is the game that I made the title of so I wouldn't get sued. It was originally, this is a game idea that came up a couple years ago, and I was going to do Himbos of Might and Magic, but for sure was going to get sued if I called it that.
Right.
And so I was like, what other M words kind of mean the same thing? But it's my I call it OSR adjacent because it's OSR design informed without holding on to, without actually really being invested in or caring about where that line is. I don't care about where that line is. More of a those are the games that kind of influenced my design of it, but it's meant to be super flamboyant and very queer and very comedic, and kind of invert that moment when we're all playing fantasy games where people are like, how can I outsmart this problem? Which I always had this that's kind of held up a lot of moments in gaming for me. It was how do I outsmart this problem? And I was like, what if you didn't have that option? What if you were just no, head empty, no thoughts. I don't know if there's there's a very complex puzzle in front of me. What happens?
I break it and keep going.
That.
Yeah. It's, there's two of my favorite parts in this book are the stats. The fact that there literally is, like, you specifically say in here, there are no brain stats, like, literally used at all. But also, I mean, I love this, like, library card stat sheet thing in the back. But the fact that your stats are literally, like, it's like breasts, lips, thighs, and hands, right? Like, all the best parts. And then, like, one of the biggest problems that himbo can face is literally heroes. It's like, don't be one. You don't have to be one. If you get too many scars, it's like, oh no, you're probably a hero now because you've been doing too many heroic things. Like, and there's even people that might have been heroes before that are just like, but that's my past life where I used to break knees and stuff. Now I just am big and pretty and it's awesome. Like, I love the, like, dive into just, I don't know how to say it, like, I guess just being like big and dumb and fun and just like being a big, nice, awesome person just seems like such a fun game as opposed to, the hero fantasy games.
Edgelord hero.
Yeah.
I do like to design away from the edgelord hero. Aaron has pointed out and reminded me. So the stats come from sex dice that we all had when we were teenagers, because there was this Reddit post. There was a Reddit post about somebody who had played their first D&D game, and the thing that everybody did with this DM, who often like introduced people to RPGs, was contribute to their dice bag. So they had this dice bag that was just huge and only made of dice that players had kind of like tipped them with after a session or whatever. And this new player didn't have any dice except for the sex dice, and so threw the sex dice in the big bag, and then heard later of somebody of the GM like pulling dice out and ended up and rolling this like, oh, I rolled D6 plus breast. And I saw the phrase D6 plus breast and my brain was like, it has to be me. I have to make this. This is my game. This is my legacy. Which comes from like the background in dirty videos. Like I was a erotic photographer for a long time, so I've always kind of been like sexuality adjacent. And so when it popped up, that's why I was like, oh, this is like exactly the cross section of all my jams. I got to do it. And then it became this like semi-heartfelt comedic bonehead game.
Semi-heartfelt. Like, heart is like one of the most important things. It is like the most important thing in the game, really.
Yeah.
Mm.
Well,
yeah, that's
thighs, but
pretty great.
Yeah.
So is there like we've had some discussion on the show and like kind of in the TTRPG space about like genre emulation, was there like something or like a like movie or franchise or story that like really sparks like very himbo for you? Or like,
I spent a lot of my time writing himbos rewatching Xena.
Hell yeah.
Xena is I know that like people were probably expecting me to go to like a big dumb dude thing. But for me, like I spent most of my upbringing watching Xena. I have a matching Xena tattoo with a group of like 5 people. We were all just like, we're getting a Xena tattoo. And it is the perfect, I was like, if there is a vibe that I want to hit, it is this. Because there's always that. Because also like, when you talk about the internal struggle of becoming a hero, I'm like, that's Xena's story, right? She like always wants to not be the hero because it means she has to do things that are like morally difficult for her. And what she really wants to do is help people. I'm getting too serious about Xena, but like that is the trajectory of the show forever, right?
There's so little judgment here on that.
Yeah.
Go off.
Yeah. And so I bought all of the seasons on YouTube and just would like sit writing the game with Xena in the background.
But with Xena, I love Xena, but Callisto always had my heart. But you also get like Ares and Hercules and people that honestly I think are literally just himbos, like realistically in the show.
I feel like in my young gay life, I was really obsessed with Gabrielle. That was like Xena was like, I'm going to be buds with Xena or whatever. But Gabrielle was the like, oh, I'm 12 years old and I have a crush on a TV show character. Right. And I feel like Gabrielle is the perfect himbo. Like she is the one that always has the like, nope, we can't compromise our morals. Like we have to be helpful. We have to believe in like certain things. We have to have values that like guide our actions. And but then also is just kind of like often walking into traps because she has too much faith in everybody. Yeah, so I feel like a lot of it for me was probably like while watching Xena, it was often Gabrielle. And yeah, but there is
That's funny.
I mean, who doesn't love Ares? Now I'm an adult and I'm like, obviously Ares, but
I really was thinking after you started saying Xena, I was like, oh yeah, Hercules too. That's another really like prime himbo. You know?
Hercules via the Disney series though, because Kevin Sorbo is not a person that I ever want to engage with the media anymore.
But like, listen,
fuck Kevin Sorbo.
Yeah,
you know,
fuck that guy.
Yeah.
But
fuck that
Disney
guy pretty hard.
Hercules.
Yeah,
Disney Hercules.
Aw, he ruined Hercules for us by being a dick.
Hey, yeah. It's one of those things where you try to separate the art from the artist, and then they're just a trash person. And if you like them, fuck off, don't listen to our podcast. Someone you've mentioned multiple times now, and someone who is just in the chat is Aaron motherfucking King, who we've had on the show before.
Friend of the show, Aaron
motherfucking yeah. How did you become friends with Aaron? Like, have you known them for a long time, or?
I have not known Aaron for a long time. I mean, I guess it's been a couple years now, because what is time in the pandemic? But I met Aaron through the Brain Trust Discord.
Really?
Yeah, and we just like messaged. I think there was just a couple moments and a couple messages where we were like, oh, I think we have similar thoughts about stuff. And I actually think the first, I might be wrong, Aaron might call me on this, but I think the first private message between the two of us was Aaron being like, hey, there's this cool zine publisher that also publishes like 18 plus work, and it can be like photographic or whatever. And I know that that's a thing you do, so maybe you should check them out. And that was the moment where I was like, oh, cool, RPG things, but also like queer sexuality, politics, DIY, art stuff things. And so that was the moment I was like, oh, I think we have a lot of like similar interests and worldviews outside of just this RPG connection that has been made through the Brain Trust. And I was like, yeah, that's when I was like, oh, Hard Eyes, great, besties forever. I guess we're getting married.
Hell yeah.
There you go. And at what point? Yeah, and then at what point did Read the Fucking Manual come about?
That was last winter. I don't even know how we started doing it. I think there were just a lot of conversations. Maybe Aaron has a better memory for these things than I do, but there was a lot of like, I would like an excuse to read the books that I buy. And also, yeah, like, yeah, I'm sure you know nothing about that.
The whole reason that I'm doing this right now, yeah.
And also, like, we're both big book nerds, and it was like, let's maybe read them like actual books. Like, let's just have a little book club. And everybody, I mean, again, pandemic, everybody started a podcast, right? So we were like, well, I've always actually wanted to have a podcast because I like to like have discussions about ideas, and I prefer to do that in a conversational way than in like a written way. And I feel like sometimes podcasts are good for that every once in a while. But then we recorded, I think like December 24th or something last year. Like, it was like, because neither of us really care about Christmas, and we were like, let's just do this. And then the recording went a little wild and we didn't release it, and that became the secret episode 0 that doesn't exist anywhere except on cassette tapes. But it's been over a year now, and it's a hoot.
So it's a great podcast. I really love listening. I mean, you guys do, I mean, a similar thing to like what we do. Like, you sit down, you read the book, you're like, you like the parts that you like, you're critical of the parts that you're not. And that's what I really like about what I don't like a lot is, not that I don't like, there are a lot of amazing podcasts are like 5-10 minute videos, but I feel like a lot of them are just like, here's the good stuff, and like that's all you get. And I really like that, you know, if you guys don't like something, you let us know that you don't like it. And I really, really appreciate that. You know, like, there's games that I'm not gonna play because you guys are just like in a very well-informed way. That's the thing. It's not just like, I don't like this specific thing. There's a lot of detail into like, this is why I don't like the way this is done, and these are ways that it could have been done better, and I might play it if it was done this way instead. But like, you know, I really, really enjoy the depth of insight that you have into the reasons that you like or not like things. And so it's really, really nice to listen to those kind of things, especially like I said, a little bit longer format where I can actually sit down and get stuff done and listen to it as opposed to like short little videos. So it's a really, really enjoyable listen. If you're listening to our podcast and you haven't listened to Read the Fucking Manual, like you are definitely missing out. So you should go check that out with Max and Aaron.
We have fun. I feel like I like to think that the way that we engage with them is personal enough that people won't feel dissuaded from like checking a book out if they really want to, like me saying, I think like kind of famously now is like, I don't really like I don't like the experience of playing The Quiet Year. I think The Quiet Year is a brilliant game, but like this is my personal relationship to this kind of gameplay, and like it doesn't click for me in the ways that it does for so many people. And I think that's legit. Some games are just bad. That's a very good game that I just have a personal dislike of. And some games like GURPS are just, let's never do it.
Okay,
I'm pro GURPS slander. So
yeah. Pro GURPS slander. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah. Again,
but that's the thing though. It's just like you can be like, with media in general, just be like, this is awesome, don't recommend. You know what I mean? Like that's an okay thing to have, and I wish more people were could think that way, that like you don't have to define something by who you are, and it doesn't have to define you whether you like it or not. Like not everything has to be a lifestyle brand. Like there are a lot of games that I absolutely love on this shelf that I will 1000% never touch. Like after I read it, I'm like, this is really well done. I love the way they do this. I love the way they do that. I'm not going to bring it to my table. I don't have the bandwidth for it. And it's just not something I'm going to enjoy doing, completely different than something like Himbos, you know what I mean? Where this is, I would and will be playing this sooner than later.
I really would like. I want to do like I say that I've said this on the show about a different game, but especially this one. I want to do a Fast and the Furious Himbos.
Just a bunch of dudes doing guy stuff.
Yeah, just being like glistening with sweat and being really big, like family.
Yeah.
And we gotta do what's right with the family.
I have this goal, and maybe this will be the year. I keep saying that this is going to be the year that I do it, and I'm hoping to manifest it. But I really want to run an ancient D&D module, like one of the big horrible ones, like Temple of Elemental Evil, but in Himbos. This is what I want. It's just like the ones that are supposed to be brutal and full of horrible puzzles and everybody dies, and then throw a game where people can't really solve puzzles and they can't die. And I'm like, this is what I want. I want to do this. What happens?
Please.
Oh my god.
Please do. Please do. That would be the most amazing thing.
Amazing.
You just come across like the most difficult little intricate puzzle ever, and someone's just like, smash, and then you just open the door and keep going. That would be amazing. Not only that, everything, what pops in my head over and over again is I would watch this cartoon on Saturday morning, every fucking week. You know what I mean?
You'd have to have one of those special channels up in the 300s to watch it on a Saturday morning. It sounds like, Yeah.
Hey, you could make it sweaty and still PG. You know what I mean? Kind of, yeah, I guess.
Some people do that.
Yeah.
I mean, it could also be one of the high channels, and I'd still watch it, though. I'll watch the dirty version. That's fine.
Absolutely. We can do a Critical Role-esque Kickstarter, make $1 billion, and then just do a Himbos cartoon. Mm-hmm. Let's do it.
Dude, we should do an actual play. Let me get in really, really good shape. Let me get a little bit buffer and leaner.
We'll all be shirtless.
Yeah, and I'll just get a mister, and so every few seconds I'll just like what they do with The Rock on the set of actually Fast and the Furious. Where he's just soaking wet the entire time, and you're like, why?
Crowdfunding is exhausting, and so I didn't end up doing this. But when I did the sample playthrough, when I did my little AP when I was crowdfunding Himbos, one of the people I invited is a person who had had only played one RPG in their life, and it was with me 2 months before. But who was a burlesque performer, and I almost tried to plan a bit with her so that she would strip as the game went on, because she would have done it and it would have been fine. I was like, well, then I wouldn't be able to use it promotional on YouTube. Yeah. But so it might kill it. But I really would like to do a thing someday where people play This is I think maybe I'm just being egotistical, but I think this is the best version of how are we all cosplaying our characters. If you're not playing himbos, why cosplay your characters?
I think there's a lot of like fairly raunchy fun to be had, kind of in that space.
I definitely think you have.
I love that.
I think you have the people that would absolutely do it too. Because I mean, I'm down, chat's down. You know,
yeah, all of chat's in, so
they're all chat's just like, listen, we're already shirtless. Let's just play a game now, and then I think YouTube would let us.
Yeah, I have a Rocky Horror Picture Show cosplay outfit somewhere in here. I've got gold spandex tights, so
I hate shirts, and kind of notoriously outside of RPGs in my actual real life, I am known to say, because I've had top surgery, I'm known to say I didn't pay $10,000 to put my chest below a shirt, but frequently, and I'm like, but the internet frequently requires me to wear shirts, and I hate them. So I'm always already there. I'm always trying to talk myself away from that in order to just engage with the internet again.
So like this is a OSR, like tangentially related OSR adjacent game, right? Do you like interface a lot with the OSR community? Because I'm wondering, like, obviously, like I don't have this personal knowledge myself, but like as like a queer creator in this community is like very incredibly split down the middle of being like incredibly LGBTQ plus friendly and then total fucking Nazis. Like in like funding himbos, did you come across anything that like any of those people who were just kind of naysayers and terrible, awful humans?
I think I'm pretty lucky, and that like one, I don't hugely care about the bounds of like what is OSR and what is not. I think like as design inspiration, find them where you can, not Nazis, all across genre, just, like anything that's not a Nazi sounds great. But yeah, and because I don't care about those things, and also because I'm just so angry and gay on the internet, I don't think that people like come to like my Twitter or my itch and like don't know what they're getting in for. I think there might have been one comment, and I don't remember it because I think there was some sassy comment about queerness on one of the things that I released, and it might have been himbos or it might have been one of the pamphlet adventures, and I didn't respond, but Aaron did. Aaron went in and made a fool of somebody who like didn't understand a gay joke or whatever. And I will forever appreciate them for that. But I feel like I do luck out because I don't I follow a lot of folks and engage with some folks that are like in the OSR, but not because of that, because they have like compelling games, but also like interesting personalities and interesting politics. Like I'm more interested in your game if you're an interesting person than I do if you even made a really cool game but are a kind of shitty or boring person, right? Like those are those things actually do affect how I read your game. And so they will affect whether or not I play your game, and how I read the subtext of your game, or like the intertextual elements of your game are going to be like impacted by probably your Twitter. Hate to tell you, RPG people, but probably I'm reading your game through the voice you use for your Twitter.
But that's incredibly valid. Like your personality comes out in your game. When you write a thing, especially you put a lot of heart into it, like your personality comes out in this. Like, yeah, if you suck, the game might suck a little bit because you're going to hear their voice in it. And that's nice to hear. I feel like when Ryan first asked me if I want to do this with him, which was like I was very early on in my like ttrpg. Like I played Cypher System. I was mostly playing that. Like I first was pushing on like OSR Twitter. I was like, holy shit, bro, this is fucking terrible. These people are awful. And now like through people we've talked to and people Ryan follows and stuff, and like me following them, it's gotten. I don't see any hate like that at all anymore. So I think the algorithm is just working. I don't know if things have gotten better overall or if the algorithm is just working, but I'm glad to hear that, fuck that one person there, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and just to weigh in on that a tiny bit, I mean, I do think that the OSR is scapegoated a little bit sometimes to just be like default. That's where all the bad people are. And I do think there are bad people across like everywhere, and we should look out for them everywhere. And I do think that a lot of the movers and shakers in that scene, I rarely see things actually put out by them, and the very few things I've seen by them suck. So if people want to be on 4chan doing all that kind of stuff, the thing about Twitter that I enjoy is that you can craft it for the most part to what suits you. Like if you don't like a Discord, you block or you mute it, or like you don't follow that person. And for the most part, I guess you can avoid that. I try not to discourse a lot on our Twitter, but I will read it, you know. So it is what it is, and we talked about this a little bit before stream with just various discourses that always pop up. They're nice to listen to intellectually if the arguments are intellectually honest about what they're saying, and you know it kind of is what it is. I just wanted to make a point to say, like, OSR, ASR, NSR, whatever it is, there can be bad actors everywhere, and I don't want to scapegoat the OSR, but also there are shitty people in it too.
Maybe more just the online TTRPG community, like the greater...
The ttrpg family is something I'd avoid a lot more than
there we go. Yeah, maybe not. I misspoke. I apologize for that. But like the ttrpg
I think it's also like a lot of fantasy RPGs, right? Like that history of people being assholes is the legacy of Dungeons and Dragons. It's not like the new OSR. Like they're like I feel like everybody I know who's working in OSR stuff are like rad queers, and so like that, and that just might be because my path is through rad queer game designers, and every once in a while we get an OSR person, but it's like who's the weird, like who's the queerdo in the group. But I feel like part of the reason that I left wanting to really engage with D&D a lot is because D&D is, and sometimes that's literal Nazis, and more often than not it's just really jerky men, right? Like it's just like here's toxic masculinity, the game genre, and it doesn't work for me.
It's just grognard douches, you know what I mean? Like I fortunately, unfortunately, I don't know. I started with 5th edition, so it was a little bit different, and I wasn't friends with a bunch of grognard douches, which I guess thank goodness. So it was nice, but then I actually started a D&D group where I used to live. Started a meetup group, had like 300 plus people on it. We were doing like 20 plus people every weekend for Adventures League. We were having meetings all the time, and you run into them. You really do. And the easiest thing to do is to just remove them and not try to, like, one of the things that the DM tips that I like the least are the ones that say, this is how to deal with a problem player. You know how to deal with a problem player? You don't. You move on. Anyway, one thing that you mentioned a little bit ago was crowdfunding and how that kind of sucks. So you recently crowdfunded a project with Aaron, Low Res Features, your part of it being Hand Baskets. You guys, it was just a 2-week funding, right?
Yeah, it was just a little Zine Quest thing that we Aaron is in the chat talking about low res features failures. It's my fault. I like approached Aaron like 3 weeks before Zine Quest and was like, do you want to do a Zine Quest with me? And they were like, well, I do have a game that's mostly written. And I was like, I have a game that's half written, so maybe we should just do it. And I think probably we could have planned it a little better, but I also don't know that I believe really much about like consistency in crowdfunding. I know that like if you throw a bunch of money at it, you can make a bunch of money, but that was never going to be the choice we were going to make. And so because we don't have a bunch of money to throw at it, so it was never going to be like, oh yeah, we have a marketing budget. It was always going to be, we're making this scrappy little book. I hope you help. Because I think that's it's our jam is kind of, both of us talk a lot about like labor ethics and all of that, and so we get really confused. We talk ourselves in circles, and I think sometimes we confuse ourselves, and then we're like, are we doing it? Okay, we're gonna do it even though we don't really know where we stand about things. And that was a lot of our low res features vibes this year. I also think this year is a burnt out year for both of us, and we should have maybe emotionally understood that. But the games are good. Even though we both had an emotionally difficult time engaging with the beast that is crowdfunding this year, the games are very good. I like my game a lot. It's really weird to make a PvP game. This is like, it is stretching my design brain in ways that I wasn't anticipating it doing. But I enjoy that exercise. It's really it's really hard. It is very hard to make a PvP game that isn't just like tactical combat. all over the place.
There's nothing wrong with a little tactical combat, though, right? But the project did fund. You guys, you're making the game. So what was the pitch for Low Res Features? I know that there's an interesting thing that I really love and I'm excited to see. But what was that project?
Yeah, I mean, the pitch was that we both had games that were kind of sitting in like a cyber pseudo punk 90s kind of vibe and wanted to pair them together, and then
that's the best cyberpunk vibe is the 90s cyberpunk.
Yeah, I mean, it's arguably the only one. I don't think it could be a new thing, but I think it's a different thing if it's a new thing. But we both read Cyber Metal by Adam Bass, World Champ Game Co. Cyber Metal 2012. Such a good game.
Amazing.
And both of us read it and were like, I have to make something. Like, it's one of those books that you read, and if you're a designer, it can't not infiltrate your brain. And the combination of the inspiration of this one game and, hey, what if we made these like pseudo 90s inspired cyber games and then packaged them together in what's called a tetmesh, which means it's one of those books that you read one way and you flip it and it's a whole other book and you read it the other way. And then because I'm a Unity developer by day, I was like, what if we just actually made it a cyber thing and made it like an AR pop-up book? So there's all this hidden shit once the book is done, that will add to it, that is totally optional, right? Like, it needs to stay optional so that the book remains complete and it doesn't require like a phone to get into. But we are also making an AR app that's I think what we're going to do is we're going to AR, like, commentate each other's games through the AR app. So kind of like make some weird little hacks and design on each other's games through AR, which I think it'll be.
It's gonna be fucking sick. I'm stoked for that.
Sounds fucking amazing. Like, for what sounds like was a difficult time to get it going, like, how is it now? Like, now that the project's crowdfunded, like, and I know it says it's stretching your brain, but it sounds like maybe in a good way. Like, do both of you feel better about the path of the project? Are you excited for how awesome this sounds? Or
Yeah, I am excited about where it's gone. I've done some play tests now. Some of those have been like, again, they've been like a kind of an opposite to Himbo's. Like, Himbo's just came out and was what I wanted it to be. It was a very easy design process for me. And this is kind of the opposite, but I feel like that's always the case with creative things, that sometimes they're like, you just get taken over and you do a thing, and other times you're like, I'm going to rip this from my body if it kills me. And Handbaskets, I think thematically is more the latter. But it's now, for me now, at least, my game feels like it's in a spot where I'm like, oh, I can see the final shape of it. I am like wrapping up the rules. I can see how it's going to make the kind of play that I want it to. And I think Aaron is also very close to being done. So I think we're both once they're done, we get to think about the fun stuff that is like layout and visuals, and then the AR stuff. So we're very close to just the fun parts.
So
what if you're about to, sorry, go ahead, Ryan.
No, go for it. Go. Yeah.
What if you're like on the verge of starting like an AR like revolution on ttrpg, and like people like, this is like, people are like, oh yeah, like through a phone app and like a book, like you can engage on another level with like ttrpg material. It's like the movement from like book to PDF, you know?
I would love it if that were my day job. So a lot of the development that I do is small arts projects. And so whether it's like VR or AR, and even occasionally just some like straight Unity game projects. And so they do tend to be like small and contained experiences. And it would be rad if that was more aligned with RPG things. I also think video games, I'm gonna do a discourse on your I apologize.
Stop, no!
I'm doing a discourse on your.
Not like we didn't do one 10 minutes ago. That's going to get people.
A lot of XR development comes either from film or from video games, right? The VR and AR space is primarily dominated by video games and film. And I think they are both worse at the things that AR wants to do than RPGs. And so I feel like there is a lot of room once designers get over the fear of the technical. It's not that hard. I've actually offered many times to run public Unity tutorials for TTRPG folks, and I should probably follow through on that, because I also teach Unity, so it's an easy thing for me to just sit down and help people with. But I feel like because RPGs are about leaving space for your players to insert themselves and to really like do an active game design through play and fill in gaps and like make leaps between things, which is kind of what AR wants you to do, because it's usually like awkwardly spatial. There's like a lot that could be learned from RPG design that I think could transfer into AR and back and forth. And I feel like I feel like it's just a cool space. Like I think about like ARGs are a thing that I think are rad that don't really exist because they're hard and complicated. But like for people that don't know, that's alternate reality games. But like alternate reality games are just role playing often, right? It's like, yeah, go to this website and then call this phone number and get a secret message and then, you know, like give your login to this other thing, and that like, and it goes across all these different mediums, and they feel really adjacent to RPGs in a way that I think would be fucking rad if more people
I fuck with that heavily. Actually, I think that is a really interesting area of development, and I hope that TTRPGs like move into that direction of like those two like forms of games like interact more. I think you have a really good point there with like, the limitations of TV film versus like the open space of like an RPG. Fucking cool. So
well, you know, I think Cyberpunk is such a good, and something that was talked about earlier, which is fun and interesting, is the difference between current Cyberpunk, I guess. Like there is no really such thing as current Cyberpunk, because like it's funny that Cyberpunk from the 80s, maybe early 90s is talking about where we are now, like 40, 50 years later, and it's not where we are, so you can't really do modern. Like I would be curious to see what someone makes in 2020 for what they think like the year, you know, like 100 years from now, what Cyberpunk would look like. It'd be such a different genre than like 80s and 90s Cyberpunk, which is peak Cyberpunk. But I love, there's a bunch of people that use like QR codes and things like that in their Cyberpunk games, which I think is like a cool thing to have, because you can link to a website that links to stuff. But like the AR aspect of it, like it's already happening. The future will just be like, our attention span is currency, and everything we look at will have some type of like hollow or AR thing in our faces at all times. Like that's where I see it going, and having a cyber game where there's actually going to be AR in the game sounds so fucking awesome. Like I can't wait to see it. Would you like, if someone did want to do something in the future after this game comes out, would you be like, sure, like the app is, here's the thing that could be used, like go for it? Like is that something that has come up at all? Or
yeah, I mean, I'm not like, because I mean the app's not anything, it's not that complicated, so there's no like it would be pretty easy. I haven't thought about it. It would be very easy for me to be like, here is the GitHub, everybody just go replace the images that are being relayed. That I probably will do that now because of this conversation, because I genuinely don't believe in copyright. And
spoken like a true programmer right there. True code monkey right there. It's like, yeah, no, all information's free. It's fine.
Well, what's funny is that it comes for me a lot from photography, because I started taking photographs when digital was just becoming the thing that was professional level. And every fucking photographer wanted to watermark their image because it was going to save them from theft on the internet. And it's a load of crap. And it's always been a load of crap. And it's just like, people are going to steal your image if they want to, and you don't make you make your money off of people knowing who you are and hiring you to do a job. You don't make your money off of selling your images on the internet as a general rule. So like whatever. And it just like makes your shit look bad, which is probably why you're not getting the jobs, not other people stealing your photography. But also like I've made much more of a career out of sharing stuff and letting people pay me when they want to, than demanding that people pay me a lot. And it aligns with my politics of sharing things and making things accessible. And like I have I have a bunch of rates that I charge for headshots, and I always say like, this is what I charge. but it's a sliding scale for anybody who needs it, and 9 times out of 10 everybody pays me what I charge or more. And it could be cheaper if you want. It doesn't actually make people pay me less, and I think there's a perception that it does. And so I do tend to be, yes, now that I do occasionally program things, I'm like, also just put that all on the internet, because I've only learned, like, I'm self-taught, so I've only learned because other people have shared stuff in different places. But I do feel like I would actually love to just be the developer for an RPG app and not do all of the game work as well. Like, I have a lot of skill sets that I've like acquired over the years, and I love doing them for other people's projects, so that I don't, because like the creative work is very hard.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's nice to help other people make their creative stuff happen by doing the part that's kind of easy. Which is to say, yes, somebody get at me if you want to make really cool ARGs. I also do volumetric video, which is a very weird technology that not a lot of people know about, but it's like, that is rife for RPG stuff.
What is volumetric video?
It's video, but it's 3-dimensional. And so you take, like, the way that I learned how to do it was you hack old connects. And there are software that lets you use old connects, and so you can like put multiples up to have a full 360 image, but you can also just do it from one direction, and it'll do like a scan wow, and then put the video texture over the 3D mesh. And so you get like actual live performances that still have dimensionality to them, so they can be in, like, a lot of people put them in VR. I think they're kind of cooler in AR, actually, because you can like put them in space. I don't like VR. I develop VR. I think it's a bad technology. So I still am a developer for it, but I'm not a hype person for it.
Yeah, come on, it'll be good in like 20 more years.
No, it won't. If it didn't make its hype during the pandemic, the time when we were all for, if it didn't thrive and survive, like if that was its moment, I don't believe that it's going to have another moment. I think what we all learned in the pandemic is actually, I don't want to stick my head in a headset that much. I want to go outside.
But you know what's interesting is I think a lot of people have this like fear of I mean, there's been plenty of movies and stuff about it, like you're going to get lost in the world of VR and never be able to come back to reality and stuff. But it's like, it's a headset, and maybe it'll get that good. Maybe we'll get to Sword Art Online, right? But like, AR is literally reality, and you just have to make it look a little different, and that will actually fuck your brain up. Like, that is, I think, honestly, like, cooler but also scarier, that totally. you like, because of the way that you can use textures and like real spaces and stuff, like you could get to a point where you're like not sure if it's there or not. Like, I mean, Pokemon Go was a thing where you could literally just see the fucking Pokemon dancing in your living room, right? And technology is just going to get better and better. So it's,
damn, was I role playing as a Pokemon tamer that whole time?
There we go. Tangenting back to something, hand baskets. So you and Aaron are doing this game. It's got the I'm going to say it wrong because it's not trebuchet. What is it called again? Tatbash. Yep, that is not throwing things. That is not a siege engine.
You can also just say flipbook. When I think flipbook, I think of the animated books, like the illustrations, right? Like,
yeah, like this thing where it goes like that.
Yeah.
But what is handbasket specifically? Like, what is your game? Because we got Intermira Brightly from Aaron. Yeah.
Yeah, handbaskets is I'm calling it a cyber witchcraft blood sport PvP RPG. It's a lot of letters in there.
Oh yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I'm leaning. It's inspired a lot by Alice in Borderland and The Mole and shows that are like those PvP. I guess also Squid Game. It just was less like, that's a good touch point, but it was less a direct inspiration for me. And things like Battle Royale in general as a genre. But with because it originally started as an adventure that I was going to make for Cyber Metal 2012, and so a lot of it started with similar themes about like the barrier between hell and earth being broken. But I am leaning a little bit more into the witchcraft stuff because I was raised Wiccan, and so witchcraft stuff kind of fascinates me. Yes, I was raised by lesbian witches in the wilderness in British Columbia. It's a wild time.
That's an amazing backstory, honestly.
So you have a life, man.
Yeah,
Jeez.
you can pick up a sword and go adventuring with as your backstory.
it's a wild time. I'm not actively Wiccan, but I do find like witchcraft as a concept really compelling, and I think a lot about like what I grew up like doing. Like I went to witch camp when I was 8, which is like this weird thing where they didn't have any like kids activities. It was just a lot of women doing a lot of like chanting and ritual in the woods, and then the kids had like a babysitter and we just skinny dipped a lot. Like that's what I remember. What I remember is that like the central tenets of witchcraft are like nudity and chanting, which that I can get on board with, but
I think we all could get on board with that.
Yeah. But I'm trying to like embrace that more in RPG land, because I'm like, oh, I have all these like touch points and inspirations that I could pull from my like real life. So that plus blood sports is the is the pitch.
That sounds amazing. What's like that one line? I'm just like, I don't care what it cost or how long it's gonna take to get it. Like I'm gonna play this fucking game. What are the AR aspects that you're putting into Wiccan, like witch Bloodsport? Like,
so the AR stuff is less fully developed because when I think we're going to swap games. So I'm going to hand it off to Aaron, and get their hacks of it. As far as like the physical AR stuff, AR is also a theme in the game, so there's like layers of it or whatever. But yeah, I'm gonna get Aaron to hack it and add probably a bunch of stuff that'll game break. Actually, the game itself really leans into game breaking rules, because I really like rules that break games. Like I really like things where people are like, oh, how do I resolve this? And you're like, I don't know, figure it out. What's the fun way to resolve it? Like that's also, as a person who often GMs, I find game breaking rules the more compelling moments for me, because it's where you get to like do something really unexpected and have a more like traditional player experience. And so I'm hoping that Aaron is probably just going to break it. To be honest, I think Aaron will break it. Even if I didn't want them to, Aaron will break the game through the AR. There are cheat codes already in there, and then Aaron has talked a number of times about like we're going to put a bunch of cheat codes in the AR stuff. I think it'll function a lot like alternate and extended rules, but then every once in a while I think there will be just a commentary. Every once in a while you're going to open up your phone and look at the book, and Aaron's going to be like, this game fucking sucks, and that's
just put the book down, so it's going to say
go outside, touch grass.
Very cool. Yeah, that's gonna be fucking sick. I'm super stoked for that, honestly. Also, which blood sport where when you get killed, you get re-sleeved into a weird body sounds. I am there for that. You know.
That does in fact happen. You can also there's a fun little world mechanic where the more things die, the more likely it is that you can ask the Lords of Hell for help. So you can just kind of like
so just like real life,
which is a world-breaking mechanic. Like you can ask for anything, right? It's just like your Hail Mary, ask for whatever you want. If you fail on your roll, probably you're gonna die. Other people might die with you, but death is. I'm big on the games where death doesn't really matter. Like it changes something, it does something interesting. I think all mechanics should do something interesting to the gameplay, but I don't think that death always in like ending a character. I don't think death is like a very compelling mechanic in most RPGs, and so I realized that now I keep making it not matter, so people can like lean into really extreme like risky choices that are cinematic and fun and dramatic and all that.
Well, one thing that, all of the SRs out there do that I enjoy versus like trad games, and it's come up a bunch of times in like talking with some other people that are part of our show and the Adventure Archive and stuff like that, is campaign play. And that's fine. I ran an Evo campaign in mostly 5th edition for like 2.5 years. It was fun, but like there's not a lot of like, you could run a 2-year campaign of Into the Odd or something like that, but I don't really feel like a lot of the more modern games really, like, there are campaign tools if you want. I don't feel like they really necessarily are designed for that. And also I don't have time for that. Like, I'm too old, my brain does not work as well. Like, there are things that I want to do, which is usually doing nothing, which is also a thing that is just fun to enjoy doing. So the investment into individual characters is a little bit different when you're not building like a 10-page backstory and doing it. But one of the things I did love about Cyber Metal is the concept of just like save points, and like you just go back to where you were before, get to where you were, and like go on again. And in a death metal battle royale game where you can kind of just basically just like, oops, I gotta, like, well, I fucked up hard, but the idea that you can, like you said, just go as hard as you absolutely want, because you know that you're not gonna have to wait like 30 minutes to like rebuild a character or do something like that or whatever, is such a fun aspect of the more modern versions of play. And getting rid of it, because as you said, it's not as I don't know, thematic, but also there's cooler things you can do than just die, I guess. So it's fun to see that in games, and I really enjoy that a lot of that you just don't have it in a bunch of your games.
I feel like the times that I've had characters die in longer campaign play, it just like doesn't feel good. And like, it's like I'm attached to this character now, and so what fun purpose does death on a character that I'm attached to, that I've been playing for a year, actually mean? Because I'm here to have fun, and if I as a player would rather keep playing this character than not, then all death is doing is making my day worse, And like, and I feel like it's the thing that like a lot of trad games and a lot of fantasy games just kind of like hold over you the whole time you're playing. And it just like, and that was a big thing for me with Himpos, was like, I don't think that's it's not a compelling knife. Right? Like, it's not a compelling motivator for play. It's not even compelling really to like try and avoid it all the time. And it was never a thing that really like inspired me. And I also do not often have time for campaign games anymore. I also like playing with new people and different people. And so I'm often playing like one shots. And I think a lot of games are kind of easier for picking that up. The couple times that I've gone back and tried to like play a bigger game, I'm a really big like, I like to play to figure out who my character is. So I don't do the like OC character creation thing. Like, even when playing D&D, even when playing those traditional games, I'm like, I actually really like alignment as a mechanic, because it tells me how I'm going to respond in a moment, but it doesn't require me to write a backstory. I can like play the backstory as I'm doing it and give me kind of like a moral center for a character, and then figure out how that applies to whatever puzzle or problem I've been confronted with. And so even if I am playing a campaign play, I'm like, I don't want to do all that backstory. I want a quick character, and then I want to figure out who they are via playing them. I am always chaotic neutral. Thank you.
I was in the chat, like,
that's really interesting way to. That's a really interesting way to look at it, because I haven't really looked at it, because I don't like alignment, but I think that interpretation of it definitely makes me feel differently about it. But I also think one of the big differences between trad and like the newer games, I'll just call them, is there is like storyteller versus referee,
Yeah.
And I feel like in trad games, like, you need a backstory because you're telling a story, and I need to know like all the blah 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 blah. But I feel like in more modern games, like, you're more of a referee, so like, not having to know the story all the time, the emergent gameplay that comes out of newer games and stuff, where you can just kind of learn your character. And honestly, if they do die, I'm not as emotionally invested, I guess. But so a lot of the, it's not compelling to die, but also it's just like, you're gonna just roll up a quick character anyway, like, why kind of thing. It feels better. And even as a GM, like, I feel better as a referee than a storyteller. So it's nice to have that kind of like emergence of your character, as opposed to having to write, like, the number of times I've got a 10-page backstory where it's basically like, I'm the savior of everything, and now I'm a level 1 character. It's just like, come on, I've
got a lot of secret princes, I'm secretly the prince of a fallen empire. I'm like, come on, man.
Yep. I could go on and on.
I run like a bastards group, and we're on a little bit on hiatus right now, and like, I encourage them to know that they're going to die, but that this might be a little bit longer form than maybe bastards usually played in. So I have like a lot of custom stuff going on. But like, for me, I'm just like, hey guys, just so y'all know, like, I have an adventure in hell prepped. So if y'all die and you want your characters back, or you all die, you're just gonna go to hell and get your character back, and they're gonna come back and they're gonna be weird. Like they're not coming back the way they went in. But if you really like that character, we can get the character back. They just might be, gray and have a deeper voice and be scarred with multiple limbs,
I mean, that's the Handbaskets way, is that you just get sleeved into a body that has weird character traits. Like I think I put one of them as a bog body, and bog bodies are a thing that upset me so much, but I was like, no, I'm gonna put bog bodies in here, and so there's a chance. Like one of them is also like is borrowed, and because I don't know what that means in the context of the game, but it seems fun to me to think about like what happens when the person that your body is borrowed from wants it back. And I feel like, I don't know. I think death, like traditionally death in games, I feel like is a failure state, and it's not a particularly compelling failure state. And so it doesn't because it doesn't really advance you as a player. It can advance the narrative, like everybody else can kind of get to rally around that or whatever. And I think that like a good solution is definitely, would you like to go back to hell and pull your body out? I would do that 100%. But yeah, I've gotten to this point, and this is largely inspired by a lot of the reading that Aaron and I do on RTFM, but I've gotten to this point where I'm like, if you're gonna have a mechanic in your game, it better impact things meaningfully. And that can be fun. It doesn't have to be like heartfelt and emotional meaningfully, right? But like if it's gonna exist, make it matter. If death doesn't matter, pull it out. If stats don't matter, pull them out, right? Like it's like the formula of this is exactly what a role-playing game looks like, which I realize there are lots of people that are not sticking to that formula, but there are still a lot of people that are sticking to that formula. And it's like, if it's not going to meaningfully make a difference, this is my learning of Kismet being a game where you just have a central role. You have one central thing that you roll all the time, and it doesn't hugely change the outcome of the game. And that's a very enlightening thing to play. It's like you have this game that has 30 different mechanics. It doesn't really matter versus this game that has one central mechanic. And so probably you should rethink all these 30 million mechanics.
Right. Now, we talked about this a little bit before on stream, and we'll talk about it when we go over Himbos. Like, I love games that have enough rules to guide you, but get out of their own way. I don't need an entire fucking book of procedures. Like, I just need to know, like, give me a direction so the referee can engage and officiate with intent from the designer, and then we'll figure out the rest of it, and it's that's a space that I tried to look at from, and and I think Himbos does a really fantastic job, and we're going to be talking about that shortly. After Low-Res Futures, is that just the foreseeable future, or do you have plans for what's coming next? Is there something else inside you that you just have to get out, or what's next?
I was gonna take a break. I have for the last year or so been very slowly working on a video game that is just my baby. I have some friends that are working on it with me that are great, but like it is my main thing. And so I was going to take a break and work on the video game and try and finish a actual playtest of said video game this summer. And then last week a game overtook me. This game is probably going to come out before Handbaskets because it just came through me. But I was thinking a lot about what are the like really compelling game moments I've had in the last couple of years, and one of them is this play by post in a Discord game of the Isle. Like the whoever made the Isle, whatever. It's a good little module. And playing in Discord was so great. And I was like, why do we not? It was super fun. And then it got to the point where it became combat-y, and it became this OSR combat, which isn't fun to do over text. And I was like, yes, Luke Gearing. I was like, I said one of those names that like everybody knows. But that part became not fun. And I was like, but what if I designed a game that was intended? What do games look like if they're intended solely to play over Discord, but potentially with a bunch of different fantasy modules? So
I'm so into this idea so far, by the way, just to let you know, like I'm really, really interested in this. I have a lot of Discord groups that would actually do this. So
it's become a very small thing that I think I will pull an SRD out of. Like it's become a very like stylized thing. It's become not generic. This was based on the Wet Grandpa episode we just did of RTFM, but there's been a lot of conversations about guys having bad times on boats, and so now it's become a sad spooky island game that may or may not end up keeping the name Bleak Coast, but we'll see. We'll see. But I think I want to pull I'm trying to design it intentionally so that it kind of has an SRD that can be pulled out to like design play by post specifically over chat messaging, not over mail.
That sounds fucking awesome.
I'm in.
Like
one of these days I'll stop nerding out about how to make game, but with this weird technology. This apparently is the thing that I'm going to keep doing. And yeah.
Hey, listen, you have a style, you have a style. So you just keep doing you, and we'll keep fucking reading your books and loving them and playing the games. So
hooray.
So speaking of himbos, I think we're actually going to get into reading and reviewing himbos now. Where can people find not only himbos, but all of the rest of your content if they're looking for what we're going to be talking about?
Yeah, you can find me, on Twitter at Maxwellander, and it's maxwellander.itch.io. It's with 2 L's, even though there are technically 3 in my name. It just looked really awkward, and now it's awkward for different reasons because I have to point it out every time I say it.
Because people say Max Wellander and stuff. Listen, I also think you're the first creator that's been on our show that actually knew their own itch.
Knew their itch, yeah. Well, like, I don't fucking know.
It's just because it's the same thing everywhere, and I have actually thought about legally changing my name to Max Wellander because of this whole debacle that I set myself up with my fucking Twitter account. So
listen, you and Aaron both with the branding just will settle on one thing and go forward, or just settle on 3 things, and then that's just where you have to be. So
Aaron's Twitter and itch pages are different spellings. It's whatever. This is fine.
we know.
It's Aaron motherfucking King, ERIN. Like we addressed it on our past episode. Go listen to the chat with Aaron. It's branding. That's what it is. So listen, Max, thank you so much for coming on. This has been a fantastic discussion. And if you ever want to run those games, or if people playtest those games, or have us talk about them again, you are always welcome, friend of the show, to come back. Everything you're doing sounds absolutely fucking amazing, and I'm really excited for what things are coming out for various reasons. So thank you so much for being here. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Also join the RTFM Discord, because we do playtests and try and play games in there, but we also just yell about the games that we talk about. If you want the behind the scenes, we don't ever do that. That's where it sits. Yeah.
Listen, I will hit you up on Discord, and we can get that Discord link, and we will be there. Am I there already? Yeah. I feel like I'm in like 80 Discords, and you just have to mute all of them. So maybe I'm already in there.
Maybe I'll just tag. I'll at you every time I put a message in Discord. I'm just going to become really irritating. Do you remember this Discord exists?
I will not mute that ad tag at all. But seriously, again, thank you so much for being here. If you're listening in the chat, stick around. We're going to actually be reading through himbos. And if you're listening on YouTube or a podcast, just click the next episode, because we will split this into 2. So again, thank you so much, and we will be back shortly.
Yeah, thanks for having me.